Sumit?
He might be mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes. We can hear you, Sumit. Uh-oh. Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we are hearing.
Okay.
Yes, we can. But sometimes, Kadir,
Can
you
you
are
hear me, guys?
also, and like sometimes, Kadir, we lost your voice. Myself, I lost your voice.
Yeah, for some reason I have a bad network. Apologize. I don't know. In the evenings, yeah.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, so we can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, you were breaking a bit, Kadir.
Yeah, I don't know. People are complaining this. I need to restart my router or something. I'll figure that out. Thank you,
All right,
guys. Over to you, Sumit. Yeah.
no problem. All right. So we have two sessions left. Our major. Before we proceed, do we have any questions from the previous sessions or any blockers that you guys faced when you were working with test project? I'll give you a 1 minute time frame to ask those questions. If not, then we can have a Q&A later after this uh, session is over, right? Going once, twice, thrice. Okay. So we have two sessions left for test project. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cover two parts. Okay. I have a question, I guess. Okay. Okay, so Ramona has asked a question that some of the coworkers that she has are having issues testing on the mobile emulators. Do you have any suggestions on how to resize the screens or with the resolution? Uh, I'm not sure. Can you answer me this question? On what platform you're using those emulators? What are those emulator platforms? Is it Android Studio or something else? Sauce Lab. Uh, so Sauce Lab, if you're gonna resize it, it's pretty much. So the only challenge with Sauce Lab and Browser Stack on the resolution of or the screen size is that it's gonna be mostly on the full scale of your mobile device, right? So when you open an app, right, uh, you don't get much options to resize the app, especially when it's related to automation, right? Uh, the bigger challenge that we have faced as well is with the multiple windows open, right? So like Samsung devices, or now I guess the Apple devices as well, they have this functionality of having two windows open where you can resize those windows and then work on those applications, right? There is a setting in Sauce Lab as well as Browser Stack where you define those window sizes and the desired capabilities. So if you can find that setting in Sauce Lab desired capabilities, you should be able to find on what size, but it should not exceed the size of the mobile device resolution itself. So that's the bigger challenge because then you need to know the device resolution of each and every mobile device, right, on which you're going to run those your application, right? But in general, what we learned from our developers or from our experience was that the resizing or changing the resolution of the application uh, is not going to impact the UI factor because it's going to all the native applications are going to auto scale itself based on the setting that you have done. Now, I'm not sure what kind of application you're running. If it is a progressive app, that becomes more challenging, right? Because then you do need, because that's not the native uh, aspect of any developer platform because it's not Android native, it's not iOS native. It's basically your web UI, but it's a progressive app. So it looks like a mobile application, but it's not a mobile application, right? In that case, you have to reset those parameters, or developers might use Bootstrap to run those applications, right? In that case, the resolution becomes important because it's not running on native application, it's running on a browser, right? Now, uh, it is an e-commerce site. Yeah, so it is a progressive app or it's a native app. So Ramona is saying it is a, I believe, yeah, that's the challenge. That's the challenge. So if it is a progressive app, then it is very developer dependent, right? On the screen resolution and the setting of that. Now that becomes a little bit challenging. The idea is that you have to do again, setting up resolutions, you need to do check once manually to see if that is working fine in any of the setting. The challenge with progressive app is again is that what kind of libraries you're using. Are you using a Bootstrap, or are you using? There are a lot of progressive app libraries that actually does the resizing for you automatically based on the screen size. But that is not that hasn't been perfected yet, right? Like the way Android and iOS does it. The progressive apps are very developer dependent, and it's mainly focus on how what libraries developer are using and what at what trigger point they're resizing it, right? And the resolution becomes more important because if the bootstrapping is not there for some of the elements, then they won't resize perfectly based on the screen resolution, right? And there will be differences. Even though there are differences, the major factor is if you're selecting, so from the automation perspective, the element selector should not be based on the visual selectors. It should be based on the element selection. So even if they're not visible, they should be able to go through the workflow. But from the UI perspective, you definitely need uh, another another part of the automation, which is called visual validation or visual automation, like Percy does, like Amplitude Eyes does. So you need that kind of validation to check their screen resolution sizes with the same app on different screen resolution sizes the without running your test uh, on multiple devices. So the idea is that you're running on one device, but the services like Percy and Amplitude Eyes has a great feature called Ultra Grid, which lets you run the same app on multiple resolutions without executing the test multiple times on device. So it's device independent. It can run on multiple resolutions, and it will let you know if something doesn't fit perfectly. All right. Yeah, but if I'm not sure what kind of issues you are facing, but if it is visual issues, then uh, try selecting the elements which are selector elements and not the visual elements. Don't So if you are going to run your automation based on coordinates, it's going to cause a lot of issues because the coordinates will change based on the screen size, right? And because progressive apps, uh, okay, so they're wanting to get rid of the test project in Sauce Lab before we even learn how to use it. To take to them. So they actually have a list that they're going to. Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're only worried about the UI UX perspective, I guess your best bet is to use Amplitude Eyes or Percy or a mix of it without running the test multiple times on different devices or different resolutions. Because it's progressive, it's a little complicated because it doesn't have much standards laid out either in Android or iOS native apps, right? So the standards are not there. So it's what developer creates. It basically tries to do those resizing or changing the resolution on how it will bootstrap that resolution. It basically depends on how developer has written the code. So it's a much more a lot more visual validation needs to go inside the testing, right? So they may be right. Their test project and Sauce Lab might not be a perfect solution for them. They need a third-party app for sure that will help them obtain this, but that doesn't mean that the other functionality part of the application you cannot test. You still can using test project and Sauce Labs, because the third-party library that you will have to create a whole lot of framework code and everything else to go, because you need to do some actions, right, based on what workflow you have, and then only you can do visual validation, right? So the navigation part still needs to be there. The functionality flow still needs to be validated, irrespective of how UI UX is getting validated. All right. Okay. So let's move on to the real meat of today's meeting. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Not yet.
Can you now?
Nope.
Maybe sure. Is the screen visible?
Nope.
It does show me I'm sharing my screen. Let me know when you're able to view the screen. I'm going to do it multiple times to see if there's something else going on.
Try sharing the complete desktop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can see the screen.
Okay. So this time what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about is the CI/CD pipeline test project. We're going to use Jenkins to create the CI/CD pipeline. So there are two parts to CI/CD pipeline. The first part is that you create the CI/CD pipeline from the UI perspective of test project. And another part is you create a CI/CD pipeline based on from the code perspective of test project, right? Uh, it's difficult to mix these two aspects because of certain limitations of test project. So the ideal scenario is that you have execution of CI/CD pipeline separate from your code execution of CI/CD pipeline, right? Now, it's not a mandate to do both of them. You can select either of them, what makes you more comfortable. But if you have a mix of both the test uh, on your application, then it makes sense that the UI part runs through the UI CI/CD pipeline and the code part runs through the code part of the UI CI/CD pipeline. Now, today we're going to talk about the UI part of the CI/CD pipeline, right? We're going to do end-to-end integration with Jenkins, execute the test through Jenkins on test project, where test project will in return run the same test on browser stack, and the browser stack, once complete its testing, send the result back to test project, and then test project will send that notification on Slack, right? So it's a complete pipeline, but it's from the UI perspective, right? When we talk about the code perspective, the workflow changes a little bit. In that case, what happens is the Jenkins get the instruction from your from your job, and then it downloads the source code uh, from your source code management tool, be it Bitbucket or be it Git, and then it executes those tests again on TestProject agents. And then the TestProject agent, depending on what kind of test you're running, might run it on browser stack or might not run it on browser stack, right? Uh, and then once again you uh, receive the feedback from the browser stack, but then the messaging that is being done is not done through the communication or the results or the reporting that is done is not done through the UI, it's done through the Jenkins tool sets, right? So we're going to divide it into two parts because the other part, the code part, is a little more complex and little more lengthier to do. We're going to do it in the next session, but this session we're going to walk through end to end from the UI perspective. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to download Jenkins. We can either install it on our own Azure or any cloud platform, be it AWS. We can directly create a virtual machine and install either Jenkins directly on that. Your enterprise should already have one of the source code management tool, not source code management, the CI/CD tool sets that you're going to utilize. So you might not need these kind of installations to be done by you, but for the sake of, in my previous sessions, I've already talked about how to spin up uh, Jenkins on Azure directly from Azure portal. Today, we're going to make it a little easier. We're going to use a deployment service, application uh, packaging service, which will deploy Jenkins on your cloud server, right? So we're going to use Bitnami today. So Bitnami is a package application for any platform. So what we're going to do is we're going to search for Jenkins. So we're going to use this package. So you can either have single tier, multi-tier on the cloud. You can have containers. So you can run Jenkins on Docker containers or Kubernetes cluster, or you can run it on your um, own computer, which does have a virtual machine capability installed on it, right? So we're going to use it on cloud. We're not going to use multi-tier. We're going to use single tier. We're going to keep it simple. And then it will ask me what cloud provider I need to launch this on. So I'm going to launch Jenkins on Azure. It's going to ask me, so this is the login setup that we need to do. And then it's going to ask me what cloud account I'm going to run this, what kind of image I'm going to run, what region I'm going to select, and what's the name of my server, right? So I'm going to name this Jenkins test server. And now it's giving me the server size, which server size I need to select. I can change the region as well. I'm going to select East US. Now it's going to tell me what server sizes are available in that region. And once I have that ready, I'm going to select one of these standard configurations for the server sizes. I'm going to select, if you click here, it's going to tell me what kind of server or memory it's going to run. So I'm going to run one vCore, 3.5 gigs memory and 7 gigs storage. So I'm going to click on create. And now it will automatically connect to Microsoft Azure on my account, which is the TestProject sponsorship account. And it's going to create that um, the whole application package on my Azure account. All right, so so the server info is this standard DS1v2, 30 GB region, East US, and this is the estimated monthly cost. I can have the temp keys and PPK keys available for me to download to have an SSH connection. Now, so the current task that it is doing is it's creating a virtual machine, which is at 0% currently. We'll wait for some time. If it's going to be, it might be a little slow because it's going to connect to your Azure account and then spin up all the devices. It's 17% completed. So it's going to create a managed image for you and the credentials for you is it's going to open port 80 and 443. And then this is your username and this is your password. So we might have to wait a little bit to get this installed. If it takes a bit of time, we're going to jump into Azure directly. So let's jump into Azure. So if you look here, there is currently a virtual machine running with Jenkins on it. And this one is creating a new Jenkins test support server. So if I go to home, I should be able to view all the virtual machines that I'm running and the service groups. So it's going to create the resource group itself as well and all the storage accounts. So it's going to do all the configuration for you. So the last time we created a resource, we created a virtual machine, we created a resource group, we created a storage account for the Jenkins server to run. But this time we don't have to do any of it, right? We don't even have to SSH and uh, go inside and get the Jenkins key for the admin, right? So what we're going to do is, let's see. Since it's taking a bit of a time, I'm going to jump into the running instance, right? So this is the running instance. So if I go to the public IP address, I should be able to see Jenkins being there. So I'm going to copy this public IP address. I'm going to paste it here. All right, so once your configuration is completed, you would be able to log into your Jenkins, and then you would be able to open your Jenkins server, right? So the first thing that we need to do is to go to Manage Jenkins, and we're going to go to Manage Plugins. So we're going to filter so we're going to find, so you might need to go to Available. So these are all the plugins that are available for Jenkins. So we're going to search for TestProject, right? TestProject, sorry. So this is the plugin that we need. We need TestProject Automation Platform plugin. We need to install it and then put it on the Jenkins server. So because I've already installed it, it's showing me under install. But once you are new to this installation, you need to go to the available tab and search for that particular plugin. So by default, there are a lot of plugins that will be installed by Bitnami itself. You might want to uninstall some of them if you don't need them. I would say keep them just for the purpose of not having to download some of the plugins again and again. These are not too many out of the box plugins. These are most commonly used plugins. So the one that we need is TestProject Automation Platform plugin. Once you install that, you go back to dashboard, again, click on Manage Jenkins, and then configure the system. So now, once we install the plugin, we're gonna go to Test Project Global Configuration and enter the API key here. Now, where to get the API key from is based. Go to Test Project, click on Integrations, go to API, and create an API key for your Jenkins. Now you need to provide the access. You can provide based on the specific projects, or you can have an unrestricted access, which will have API key. It will have access to all the projects. I'm going to finish this. What it's going to do is it's going to create that access, API key access, and then the access right is unrestricted and the status is active. I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to put it here. All right, apply and save. So once that is done, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new project here, right? But before that, let's go to project and create a job, right? Because what we're going to do is we're going to run job on Jenkins and not the test directly. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a job. It's a mobile app, so Android job. Go to next, Jenkins run, click next. Now what kind of agent you want? I'm going to select the virtual agent, and I'm going to use Samsung Galaxy S20. I can select multiple devices as well. So if you want to run this job on multiple devices, you can do that. Once the job is run, now I need to add test to that job, right? What kind of test I want to run on this configuration? So I'm going to run our Go Transit test, right? Now, since it is there, I'm going to execute it once to see it's running successfully, right? So I clicked on run. I'm going to go to monitor and see if the test is working. So Jenkins run, initializing. Let's go to browser stack and see if the test is running here. It should come under app automate. Still initializing. So we're gonna wait till it starts the test. It should have a build working here. So this is the same test that we created last time on Go Transit. So we're running the same test. So the thing that we need to consider when you're running on any mobile testing on the cloud services is in general on cloud, mobile testing is a bit slower. The reason being that it needs to install the app. It needs to initiate it needs to install the Appium server as well. And then it needs to basically create all those parameters before it can even run the test. So you can see here now we have a build overview. So if I click on refresh, it should show me that it's running a test, which is this project, first mobile project, and it's a Jenkins run job. Yep, so it's completed successfully. Now we can see it's one passed. It run on the Appium framework, build state is completed, and the session test is passed. If I go inside it, it should show me the details of the test as well. And it ran on device Galaxy S20, Android 10. And here's the video of the exact run. So we can take a look here on what exactly was run. We selected this. We selected the origin and the destination, and it should show a message saying no routes found, right? Or no trips found. Awesome. And these are all the steps that were run during that particular run. And if you need to go to that specific step, you can just click here. It will directly take you to that. So these are test logs. There are network logs. You can use Appium logs and app profiling, right? So some of the performance parameters that you can look here. Let's go to the dashboard now. Once this is done, now what we're going to do is we've created the job in TestProject. Now we're going to create a job in Jenkins. So we're going to create a job saying okay, we're going to create a freestyle project. Click on OK. Now we don't need to do any of the source code management things here because we're going to use it in the next session when we are actually downloading it from the source code management. Now, all your code already is available on TestProject because we are doing the UI version. So you don't need to get any code for this job, right? Build trigger, this is what you can use. You can build periodically. Let's say I'm going to run every hour, so I can add that parameter. Or I can poll SEM will not work here. Poll SEM will work if you are basing it on a trigger that when a developer does a commit or a build, it will do a poll to that source code management, and then it will run those tests. Build environment, it's basically standard if you want to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a build step, right? What we're going to actually do in this job. So we're going to run a test project job, right? Now we need to select a project ID, right? By default, the project IDs are available here, right? But if in case they're not available here, what you can do is you can go to project. So this is the first mobile project. If you go here, you can copy ID, right? So if I copy ID, it should be same as what is mentioned. So if I just copy the ID here, it should be same as here, right? And now we're going to select the job ID. So we have a job called Jenkins Run. Again, the same way you can go here, click on the three dots and copy the ID if that setting is not there. What agent you want to run on? I'm going to run it on virtual agent. And wait for finish. I'm going to select 1800 seconds. What it means is that irrespective of the status of the test, it should wait 1800 seconds for the finish. XML report if you want. Generally, you won't be getting XML report through the UI. So we're going to do an apply and save. So we have our test project mobile job ready. Now what we're going to do is we're going to kick off this by clicking on the build now button. Once that is done, you can see the build has started. You can click here and look at the console logs. So it says started by user, console output is here. So if you go to test project, it should have go to monitor, it should have started the job. So you can look here, job, first mobile project, name Jenkins runs, and ran by Jenkins build one, right? Previously, it was ran by uh, the job Jenkins run. So if you look here, it was run by Jenkins run. Now it's run by Jenkins build one, right? And if you look at browser stack, once it comes to the starting phase, it should show that the test has started executing here. Yep, it started, so it should be showing here. So as you can see, it's running now. The name is Jenkins build one, and which exactly is what it is running. Uh, Build number is one. So as the build number changes, it's going to show you different naming convention based on the build number that you're running. So it becomes much more easier to track, especially if you have a single dashboard on test project, it will show you there. So it completed successfully. If I refresh, it's going to say it's passed, but it's Jenkins build one. So we ran it through Jenkins, right? And if you look here, it's again the job that was run. And then if you look at the Jenkins, it should show it's passed, right? So the blue one is success. So it will show you the execution has finished successfully, and you can directly go to the report from here. So if I click here, it will open the report for that particular job. And then you can open the browser stack report from here. Now, once that is done, my pipeline is still incomplete. I need to add it to my notification server, right? Now, in this case, I'm going to use the integration. I'm going to use Slack. So I'm going to add Slack integration. So I'm going to use my own workspace. I'm going to use a general channel. So I have the Slack integration completed. So if I go to Slack, it should show me that I've added an integration to this channel with TestProject. Once that is done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure the job, right? So I go to project. Look at this job. I click on manage email notifications. No, I'm not going to send the email. I'm going to use webhooks, right? So Slack is basically a webhook. The integration of Slack is basically through a webhook. So Slack will provide an incoming webhook to test project. So I'm going to send a message on start. I'm going to send a message on finish. You can select always, or you can select only on failures. And I'm going to select the webhook, which is basically my Slack integration. All right, I'm going to click on save. Now I'm going to kick off. So I'm going to kick off one more build to see if the Slack notifications are working. So it should start another build for me. Yep. So if you look in number 2, so I kicked off another one. I should be able to see in the monitor. So the build number is number 2 now. It's again initial. Once the progress becomes start, I should receive a Slack notification. Yep. So if you look here, uh, Jenkins run job has started on virtual agent at this time, started by Jenkins build 2, platform Android, target browser stack, and agent virtual agent, and test number is 1, right? Once the test is completed, yep. So the test is completed. It will show me 100% pass, Jenkins build 2. Again, the targets were browser stack, Samsung Galaxy S20. This is the serial number, and the agent is the virtual agent, and number of test 1. Right, so I have end-to-end integration now. Now, so what we have achieved today is we have created a CI/CD pipeline through Jenkins. If I look here, if I refresh, it should be completed. If I go here, console output again, uh, this is the report link. Now, you can create trending reports on Jenkins itself, but if you doing it through the UI, it's preferred that you have your report, all your report listed out here uh, on on the test project itself, right? It has much more advanced features than Jenkins reports. The Jenkins reports we basically use when we do the coded automation, right? But for the sake of test project and the usability of test project is much more simpler if you're running through the UI pipeline. All right, so this is what end-to-end pipeline in test project from the UI perspective is. Now you can create multiple pipelines in the coded version, either in using Azure pipeline or using Jenkins as well. But we'll show it's a little complicated than the UI part. So we'll show that in the next session because it will take a little bit of time to show how it works. But for now, if you are going to run through the UICCD pipeline, now you can basically have this job integrated in any of the dev pipeline. So you can tell your developers, so this is the job that you have created. And once any of the developers commit to the source code repository, you add this in the pipeline as the next step uh, to run those tests and provide the results on Slack channel to the developer, right? So by end-to-end integration means that developer is not worried about what's going in between uh, in between when he commits to the notification that he receives, right? He is basically concerned only about if the test results are pass or fail. And if the tests are failed, can he look at the video or the report on where exactly it failed, right? And the, the job of a test automation person is to come in between those two endpoints where when the developer commits to the developer getting the notification of a pass or a fail, along with the links on the failure reports, right? His job is to create that end-to-end solution and to create that pipeline or a job to basically enable that pipeline for the developers to work around it. All right, any questions on this? I'll keep 5 minutes open for questions. So a question for me, was this end-to-end solution make sense? Does it up to the expectation of what you guys were thinking on how a CI/CD pipeline should work? Okay, let me see if there are any questions. You don't have to do anything in Azure. The only thing, if you want to avoid this error, is that you log in Bitnami or register in Bitnami using Azure or Microsoft login. So if you go to Bitnami, so I'm going to do a sign out and I'm going to do sign in. So you sign in with Microsoft account, right? Then you don't have to create another connector to Azure because Bitnami will already have those Microsoft credentials with itself. You might receive some notification Azure saying Bitnami is trying to access your account, or you have provided access uh, uh, to Bitnami, a third-party service provider, to your Azure services. You just click on saying yes, you did, right? But if you're not signing it with Microsoft, then you have to create a connector to the Azure account, right? So easiest way, sign in with your Microsoft account. Any other question? So in the next session, we'll talk about the coded version of the CI/CD pipeline. I hope this was not too difficult because the next will be a little bit complicated, especially because the web version is much more simpler. The mobile version is a little trickier because you need to have those capabilities integrated in the code itself. And then integrated with browser stack, right? So the ideal way is that you run those uh, on your local agent, but we'll talk about it in our next session. All right, so that's it, guys. Thank you so much. I'm done. If you still have questions, you can Slack or we don't have Slack, so you can Microsoft Team us, and you can put it in the channel, and I'll answer as quickly as possible.
All right. So guys, just a reminder, next week, Wednesday is our last session of this topic, as well as the last session of Testoper community sessions for this year, 2020. So next session, we will have a raffle, as you all know. We have done totally 6 sessions for this. Out of that, 1 was canceled, so totally 5 sessions. those who attended 4 sessions will become eligible for that raffle. And tomorrow, in our next session, we will do the raffle maybe in between the session and announce the winners. So the winners, there will be 5 winners announced, and each winner will get $50 gift card and also some stickers from TestProject. Right. So I'm waiting for them to send it, and we will coordinate the logistics. But however, the winners will be announced in our next session. So please join us to support this raffle, and looking forward to see you all next week.
Hey, Kadir, will I be counted under the raffle? I joined all the 5 sessions.
Correct. Yeah, you will be counted, but you won't be selected.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, buddy. Take care. I'll see you guys next week then.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.